In the morning, we heard a lot from protocols targeting institutions. Thanks a lot. Will help a lot in the presentation. So, we heard about institutions targeting, no, other way around. We heard from protocols targeting institutions. And I want to share today a few insights from our observations working with institutions on a daily basis. What are the actual demands and what infrastructure is needed to provide that adoption for institutions. I'm Daniel, Managing Director of Finoa Consensus Services. We're the staking arm of Finoa, a regulated custodian based out of Germany. And I want to share a few insights here. So I think one thing that's clear is that institutions are here. I think the details of those numbers are not relevant. I think what's clear to understand is that institutions are investing. We're seeing this with the AUM of ETFs. We're seeing this with the ETF fund, with the VC funding. And on the other side, with the stablecoin payments, that something that we see is that if the industry is able to provide an actual use case, an actual benefit for institutions, they will adopt, they will use those use cases if that's something that benefits their processes. So institutions are here, so let's see what are their demands and how can we track them. But let's first go one step back. A network is not only consisting of institutions. There are various players that need to come together to form a successful blockchain. On the first of all, you have kind of the foundation, kind of the founders that have a great idea. They're designing a new decentralized system, and that are onboarding all of the other players in the end. Then we have the investors, the capital, that is funding this idea. It's funding the foundation, not only with money, but also with expertise, so the whole idea can come to life. Then last, but definitely not least, we have users. Those are the ones that are using the system, that are building innovative apps on top, that are building communities, and that they are filling this blockchain with life, and that's in the end the purpose of a blockchain is to being used. Is the purpose of, in the end, any technology. And all of these participants need to come together in order to form a thriving blockchain ecosystem. But in order to support all of those activities, we need to have an underlying infrastructure. We need like validators to run the chain. We need wallets to enable interactions. We need custodians to safeguard assets, exchanges to welcome new joiners, and enable them to get their hands on like these tokens that are being newly issued. But those players have very different requirements. And they increase, when we see here, from left to right, from retail to banks, from regulated custody to self-custodying your stuff on your ledger at home. Now, let's get to the institutions. Let me explain the basic needs for institution and how they have evolved to look at your personal crypto journey. So, I think we've all started with investing into crypto. We bought some tokens, and then the first question was, where do I keep this? Do I leave them on the exchange? Do I transfer them to a self-custody wallet? Or do I need a more sophisticated solution? And that's something that's solved for institutions, right? We have like regulated custodians that are enabling institutions to invest and to hold their funds in a regulated and compliant way. After investing, the next step for most of us was to look for yields. So we checked what's kind of the, let's say, low-risk opportunity to get some yields, and that's typically staking. So staking also one of those basic needs that every investor and every participant in the ecosystems are interested in, and that's why we have so many validator companies. That's why we have a summit that's called Staking Summit, because it's one of the basic needs for every investor. And that's also something that's solved for institutions. We have a lot of professional validator companies around the world, a lot of those here at the summit. So also something that's done basically for the institutional space. Now, what's the next step for a participant in a blockchain after investing and staking? It's about using actual apps, right? So you want to participate maybe in DeFi, you want to interact with the application that the blockchain was built for. And that's something that's solved for retail. You can use your browser extension, your MetaMask, connect to any app, and do the interactions that you want to do. But there is a gap for this for institutions. Investors at the moment are mainly investing into blockchains, but they are rarely able to use the use cases in the application that those blockchains are built for due to technical limitations and regulatory limitations. And same goes for foundations. Foundations have, in most cases, also high technical limitations or even regulatory ones to actually use the applications that are built on their own chain. Same goes for enterprises, right? If we want to bring enterprises on chain to build the applications, to use applications on chain, we need to give them an infrastructure that's built for them to get those things done. So the main gap that we are seeing at the moment is a secure interaction directly out of a regulated custody system to interact with basic applications such as stablecoin yields, liquid staking, tokenized RWAs, or whatever we see in the future. And that's a bridge that we want to build. But let's first talk about the other infrastructure that we are already providing. As we saw with the basic needs, also our company started with regulated custody for institutions around 2019 to enable investors, foundations, and institutions to invest and custody their funds in a regulated system. We supported early investors to receive their investments onto our wallets secured by us. We supported foundations to manage their treasury. The next iteration was then to build our own staking arm, now roughly 3-4 years ago, to help foundations to decentralize their systems, to professionalize their systems, and to enable investors to directly stake their funds out of our regulated custody system. And now we want to take the next basic need and solve this for institutions as well. We want to enable institutions and enterprises to evolve from investors to users. And we will start with the, let's say, most interesting use cases for them. And those are liquid staking, stablecoin yields, and tokenized RWAs. Because the blockchains that we are building in this industry are meant to be used not only by users, but especially from institutions. And at the moment, we are scouting for those projects. We're talking to a lot of you already, but if you are building an application, a chain in this space that's fitting into those categories or something other that's interesting for institutions, I'm happy to connect here during the event. In the end, we want to make sure that the investors, the institutional money is being enabled to use those applications that we are building on chain. And as one of the leading custodians, as well as a staking provider, we have the opportunity to bring those institutions on chain into those apps. So let's use this conference to connect and find ways to bring institutions on chain. Thanks a lot.